Society has taught us happiness comes from chasing these external achievements.
Happiness from the inside out, one of your kind of core messages. What's the inner dialogue for you like around the eastern suburbs of Sydney, knowing that you're trying to break free of this hustle mentality?
It's just an energy of the place. If you go for a morning walk, most people are heading into work and they've just got that look of anxiety on their face. The hustle culture teaches us that we need to strive for success at all costs. But if we flip that, the external results actually flow as a byproduct. It's not turning your back on the external achievements, it's putting yourself first.
The masculine is getting broken down in so many ways because that primal energy, that desire to hunt when embodied from a heart-centered place is a very attractive trait.
The word on the street is that women find men aren't approaching them. Men find women are the same, really, that they're a bit aloof, and also women are afraid of men being F-boys. So there's a standoff and no one's really connecting. If you have leaky sexual energy, it might be liking hot girls' photos on Instagram. You can appreciate someone's beauty and compliment someone in the street, but it's in a way, if you're giving away your sexual energy, that for me is a little moment of micro-cheating.
Is the little boy within you still seek any kind of recognition, validation? Does that feel really integrated for you now? Where do you see the ego where you still need to just work with?
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Life by Design podcast. On this week's episode, I speak with Nick Slater. Nick is an Australian actor, voiceover artist, and digital creator with over 20 years in entertainment. Known for his roles in Rain, Neighbours, Reef Break, and The Fantasy Island. He also built a reputation in commercial voiceovers and narration. Today, Nick captivates an international audience with 500,000 plus with engaging, thought-provoking digital content. After losing his father, he developed a passion for longevity mindset and conscious living, values now that he weaves into his brand Becoming, which is all about inspiring people to evolve, build healthier relationships, and make more meaningful choices. In today's episode, expect to learn the importance of trusting the universe, whether external achievements are everything we think they are, feeling alone, our ego, healing our shame and guilt, and much, much more. Enjoy the episode. All right, gang. Now, before we get into today's episode, I want to introduce the Inner Circle. It's my signature mastermind for high-performing men who've nailed the business game and are ready to level up across the board. We're talking a group of ambitious, purpose-driven men building rock-solid relationships, breaking through limitations, and building a life on their terms. If you're done settling and ready to raise the bar and have it all, click the link in the show notes and apply.
Nick Slater, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Blake, mate. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a massive fan of your work, so feeling very grateful to be on the show.
I've got a good story for you, first up, and it is from about 6 months ago. I was on Hall Street with two friends, and I was sitting at the smoothie bar there. It's called On the Corner. Remind me of the name.
Cali Press.
Cali Press. I was sitting there with two friends, and there was this guy who was sitting kind of with his back to us, but we could see his face, kind of. Really smiley guy, really happy, just looked like he was happy just for the sake of it. Turned around, it was you.
No way.
It was. This was, I hadn't spoken to you online or anything at that stage. I was like, you walked away, and the two friends I was with were like, he's a happy guy. I was like, fuck, he looks familiar. And then I joined the dots. Is that the type of feedback that you get often?
That's very lovely. Maybe I was just in a good mood that day.
Yeah.
Look,
Is that just how you operate? It's quite a because you just seemed happy with life.
Well, thanks, mate. It's such a vibrant little street there. I think naturally it lifts your mood. I try and make energy and my mood the real priority every day. So it's a focus of mine to really nurture that. And sure, it doesn't always come easily, but if I can make that the priority each day, things seem to flow a little bit easier from there.
Is it something at some stage you've struggled with? Why did that become a conscious thought for you?
Yeah, it's definitely something I've struggled with. I've been through my own setbacks, and I think naturally I'm an overthinker, which can either go two ways. It can go into a bit of a spiral of being a bit harsh on myself and being a bit judgmental. But it's also a bit of a gift, I guess, because it allows you to constantly evaluate things. And in the past, I've been guilty of over evaluating my day and putting way too much pressure on myself with work, that pressure to constantly perform or um, optimize my work or whatever it is, and just put way too much pressure on myself. But these days, I feel like I've got a pretty good balance where, yes, have high standards and set high expectations, but also enjoy life. And that's probably been the biggest shift for me in the last couple of years, going from that real hustle at all cost mentality to something now where it's finding a bit of flow and realizing that life really is about balance. So setting those high expectations, setting those goals, but also letting yourself off the hook and allowing yourself to have a bit of fun during the day and do not beat yourself up when you're not perfect.
It's such an interesting um, challenge, and you spoke about both of them almost in one sentence of high standards and letting yourself off the hook. What's the inner dialogue for you around having high standards and sometimes not meeting them? From what I'm hearing, it used to come with maybe some berating or challenges, but how do you maintain high standards and, I guess at times, as you said, let yourself off the hook?
It's a really good question. I think for me, those sort of came in when I went out on my own about 10 years ago now. So the pressure of having to earn your income where you're not relying on this salary each month, that came with a lot of pressure. So within that, I put a lot of attached a bit of shame and guilt when I wasn't constantly being productive. So it comes with experience knowing that yes, you can still work towards your goals and build a successful business. But part of that, a really necessary ingredient of building a successful business is maintaining your energy and maintaining a positive mindset so that you don't burn out. So I guess, yeah, it's realizing that that hustle mentality is not a sustainable way to work. And you've got to give yourself permission to stop and smell the roses and to have fun. And that's been a really pivotal shift for me. So to your question, I think it's about having that awareness. You want to have high standards for yourself. You want to set high expectations, but also appreciate that balance is really necessary. Balance is an essential part of sustainability so that you can be effective over the long term and not just in short bursts.
How do you go for you personally? I don't know much about kind of how your partner's um, mindset is around hustle, but how do you go personally in the eastern suburbs of Sydney? Because that's something that I didn't nail, and I don't think I really realized at the time. But the Byron Bay lifestyle is, I wouldn't say anti-hustle, but the eastern suburbs can eat you up, the eastern suburbs of Sydney. So do you find yourself in a bit of a push-pull at times? Have you found a way to break free of that? What's the inner dialogue for you like around the eastern suburbs of Sydney, knowing that you're trying to break free of this hustle mentality?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and I completely agree. And sometimes it's not a conscious thing. It's just an energy of the place. Everyone's very work driven and you can just feel it. If you go for a morning walk, most people are heading into work and they've just got that look of anxiety on their face where they're like, fuck, here we go, another day. And that rubs off on you. So you've got to be conscious of that to steer against it, I think. But certainly, like, I haven't nailed that balance as well. And that's why I need to take breaks. Going up to the Goldie, where my mum lives, is a big part of that because where you are and on that in that southern Gold Coast area, there's a much slower energy, which just feels good for the soul. And the crazy thing is the eastern suburbs obviously has such beautiful beaches, but even then, there's still that energy. And on those beautiful days at Bondi, as nice as it is, there's still 10,000 tourists down there. So it is a chaotic energy. For me, it's just about making sure you're honoring those moments of rest during the day, which is so much easier said than done. But going for a swim, going for a walk, and just making sure that you're getting the balance right.
I, I don't know your friendship group, but the eastern suburbs of Sydney, I spent 12 years, so we'd be half a degree separation. Do you feel, is your friendship group of the same mentality, or do you feel even then that you're still kind of up against it because they're in hustle mode and you have to remind yourself of your own mode and your own values and what's true for you? Or have you found yourself more gravitate more to people of similar values?
I'm lucky that I've got a really great group of mates that I went to school with. So we've all been friends for what, 20 years now. And a bunch of them have moved down to Sydney. So I've got that core group that will always be there, who I probably see the most. But they're generally in more corporate paths in banking or medicine or whatever it may be. So those boys are the best. They're my family. But outside of that, I've got friends who are in the similar industry. So for them, I guess I mean, we're probably not aligned on our interests in terms of what I talk about and what I create content about. I think they're still pretty surprised that I'm making a career out of social media. But it's just the way I see friendships like that. And I learned this lesson off a coach of mine is you can view them as spices in your cupboard. So some spices you're going to use on everything, maybe your salt and pepper. Some spices like paprika, they're a little bit more spicy and you only use them every now and then. So this just allowed me to look at friendships through different lenses, almost categorize them I mean, that sounds a little bit superficial that way, but it's just reminding yourself that you don't need to see same friends all the time. It's about finding balance in the friendship group and realizing that different people are going to give you different things.
Did you ever struggle with that as someone who's obviously quite invested in personal development? Did you ever struggle wanting to bring them along for the ride or convince them of the power of personal development? Or have you always found that quite a peaceful detachment of like they serve, and again, that might not be the right language, but they serve friendship in this level? Because similar to me, I've got guys who I talk about footy every week of the year between April and September, and then we don't talk that much between kind of October and March the next year because it's very footy related. And I found myself wanting to draw them into this path and more like-mindedness. Did you struggle with that, or has that always been quite a smooth transition for you?
I think naturally I've always had a very different job to my mates. So because I went to a private school in Brisbane, they really channeled everyone through the more traditional career paths. But I was always quite creative. So outside of school, I went into radio and then I worked as an actor. So I always had a different job. So I gave up on the idea of I gave up on that idea of pulling my friends into what I do pretty early on. And I think naturally, my mates are very innately into self development, even if they don't talk about it or do or yeah, even if they don't talk about it as much, they're naturally quite healthy and prioritize mindset and things like that. So we do align on that. I guess the congruency is where we're different is that they're not into social media at all. So I felt quite an outsider in those terms. But like I was saying before, it just meant that I stopped relying on them to talk about work things and use them for, catching up and having fun. And then if I need to talk work and business, that's when I've built friends who are in the same industry as me. So I guess it goes back to realizing that different friends will give you different things.
Happiness from the inside out. One of your kind of core messages. I feel like everyone kind of knows that, at least on a conceptual level, but the actual embodiment of it is a very different place to get to. Why is that so important to you, and what has that path looked like for you in terms of developing that?
It's really important because I think society has taught us that happiness comes from chasing these external achievements, whether it's the relationship, a polished career, or even, superficial things like a new car. Flipping that mindset and realizing that once we cultivate that contentment internally and bring that inner harmony, those external results actually flow from that. So it's really sort of anti-hustle movement. So the hustle culture teaches us that we need to strive for success at all costs, even the cost of our mental and physical health. But if we flip that, not only do we develop more happiness and health internally, the external results actually flow as a byproduct. So this was a concept that I learned through coaching indirectly, where I was in a bit of a rut with work. I was working really hard, and I was so desperate to get my social media career off the ground, and I was hustling. And my wonderful coach at the time just taught me about creating space in my day, where it's prioritizing my energy through things like meditation, even slow walks, and just trusting that the universe is always going to deliver us what we're ready for. So through that process, it just allowed me to completely shift my mindset to prioritizing my energy first. And it really clicked for me when the results started to come. So because I was prioritizing walking and health and food and rest and all of these things, I was a happier person. My energy was up, and that allowed me to create better content. And with content, our energy speaks before we say a word. So there's times that I've been low on the day and I've recorded something, and even if it was good, the audience can feel that through the reel. There might be a 10% difference in your delivery or your energy's a bit flat. But when you're in a fantastic mood and when you're up, that comes through the screen. So I was able to see these tangible results of how my energy was directly impacting the results coming my way. So ever since then, I've just made that my focus, and I've created a brand around that called Becoming. And you're right, that the main tagline is happiness from the inside out. And this is something I'm really, really passionate about, because it's not turning your back on the external achievements. It's putting yourself first. And yes, you get the external achievements, but you also get to build harmony in your relationship and create a better family. So it really is a win-win for everything. I'm really, really passionate about that.
What for you was the moment where, I don't know all of your story, but what was the moment for you where this really landed? Because you do have a very warm nature, and when we kind of saw you on Hall Street, it wasn't a surprise to me that happiness that kind of beamed out of you was picked up by my friends, because watching you on social media, I'm like, yeah, he does have a really strong warmth. So what became the tipping point, or the insight, or the coaching that you're like, okay, the embodiment of this is really important? What was that moment for you?
I had a bit of a shocking couple of years in my late 20s. So I was in a long-term relationship up until I was 27. And then I booked a acting job overseas. And it was quite bizarre in that I was working in radio, 9 to 5 job. And then the next week I'm on set in America, or is in Canada, where you're getting driven to set, I got into the lift to go to work one day, and there's Harvey Specter and Lewis Litt from Suits. They're my neighbors in the hotel I was staying. We go downstairs to the lobby. There's fans like waiting for autographs and things. And it was just a complete fucking wig out. So I went from like normal job to being on this multi-million dollar set. And over the next couple of months, I drifted apart from my girlfriend at the time. And I eventually I cheated on her over there. And it just sort of kickstarted this huge period of personal growth for me, because my life I turned my life upside down on its head. I created a bit of a mess. So through that, I lent into mindfulness and ways that I can uncover what had actually gone wrong for me, and it really tortured me for a few years. And then 18 months after that, I lost my dad to brain cancer. So I was feeling very alone. And in that whole process, I again lent into meditation, and I started to really feel the benefits of that. Meditation allowed me to mourn my father's death before he died, so that, because we knew it was coming for about 18 months. And I realized that I handled that quite well because of that meditation. So I do think those two events created a real rock bottom for me, and it really kick-started that self-development journey. And just seeing the tangible results it brought for me just allowed me to lean in even more. I started sharing about it. I started writing things about it and creating YouTube videos. And since then, my content has been in that space because I guess it comes from that deep personal mission to share what helped me.
What happened for you just 2 minutes ago in your body when you were explaining the situation with your ex? What do you notice as you share that story now in terms of either thoughts that come with sharing that story or what happens in your body as you kind of share what you did, which obviously there's, regret and obviously, stories that come with that. But what did you notice? Because I felt like just I feel like a contraction of sorts.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Mm,
I there was so much shame and guilt around it
mm,
so long, and I've come to peace with it myself, but it's not something I talk about publicly. So I haven't shared
mm,
it with too many people besides my, closest relationships. So there is a shame and guilt talking about it.
mm,
Um, for sure. And I'm, yeah, certainly not proud of it, but I guess there have been so many lessons that came out of that, that that have really helped me move forward. And I guess probably the biggest one is that cheating happens before the cheating. And my brother
mm,
actually told me this at the time. It's not, it happens in the text or sitting and talking to a girl with too many drinks at a bar, allowing yourself to drop those barriers. That's really where it begins. So to not cheat, it's not just, okay, don't go hook up with any girls. It's don't put yourself in a position where it becomes possible.
yeah, and we see a lot of that. And the the nature of my work, and I don't know if this fits with your work, but working with a lot of couples and individuals,
Mm.
there's a lot of those little micro moments that lead you to that point often. And a lot of those little micro moments that you could quote unquote get away with, but deep down, if you really sat with yourself, you know that you're doing the wrong thing.
Mm.
Um, and I think, I don't know if you party much. I'm guessing not a huge amount. There's just certain situations that you are more liable or more at risk when it comes to um, challenging situations, e.g., as you said, lots of drinking, drugs, those situations that just make you more at risk.
That's
What?
such a good point. Yeah, with booze especially, like
Yeah.
if you are putting yourself in a position where you're boozing with your mates, going out till 2 a.m., sure, you might not have intent to cheat, but you're putting yourself
Mm,
in a position where you're outside of yourself. Your most, you're not your strongest self, and you're
mm,
just allowing some vulnerabilities to come up. It's just not an ideal place. So you're right. I think that's an example of micro cheating. Even
mm.
liking people's photos on
Yeah.
Instagram, and it guess goes back to that idea of leaking sexual energy. If you have leaky sexual energy, it might be liking hot girls' photos on Instagram. It might even just be walking down the street and checking someone out in a way that is a little bit sexual. Like
Mm.
you can appreciate someone's beauty and compliment someone in the street, but it's in a way if you're giving away your sexual energy, that for me is a little moment of micro cheating.
This is fascinating because I feel like a lot of guys in particular probably don't know what leak like if they really sat with themselves, they'd probably be able to sense something just like leaky, but they would find it hard to find language for it. And you gave a really good example because there can be a level of admiration for beauty, etc. But I think guys would struggle to know what is healthy admiration and what is when it becomes leaky. So it's a really good example that you gave.
Mm. Yeah. Do you think it comes back to almost self control or awareness of, yeah, I don't know. Is it a discipline thing or is it just an understanding of the difference between, checking someone out sexually or appreciating and still holding your power? I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't got language for it, but I've seen I find it fascinating because my partner and I will, like in Byron, I think I know everyone who's running because I run. Like, oh, I'll look back, guy or girl, it doesn't matter who it is. I clearly would know them because I'm a runner. It's actually not true. I don't know anyone, but I'll always look at them and go, oh, like he's hot, she's hot. And there's a part of me that feels safer when my partner can acknowledge a guy who's either good looking rooster or a chick that's hot. Whereas
Mm,
if she claimed that they weren't when they clearly are, I'd actually feel more unsafe.
mm.
So it's interesting to find language for it. You're right in it being leaky, but it's what is that that's leaky?
Yeah, it's hard because it is an energy thing. So it's
Totally.
hard to put words to it. Same here. Like in Bondi, everyone's beautiful. So
They are.
there's good looking, shredded dudes walking down the street.
Mm,
And of course, Zoe, like I notice them. So of course, Zoe's going to notice them as well. But I don't expect her to turn away or not notice them. It's just that difference between appreciating someone who's in great shape or saying,
mm.
oh, fuck, I'd love to sleep with that person, you know?
Yeah, I'm going to play with this afternoon because I want language for it. But it's almost like appreciation feels more. I haven't got language for it. It's like appreciation feels more heart-centered and embodied, whereas that sexual energy feels a bit more dangerous, a bit darker, and a bit shadowier.
Yeah, well put.
But I need language for it because it's most guys. I mean, we can't articulate, and we've thought about this a lot. So most guys would struggle to find language for it.
I saw a reel on Instagram. This beautiful girl came on and said that this old gentleman stopped her in the street and said she looked absolutely gorgeous.
Mm,
And she didn't have words, so she walked away and was saying to the camera how disgusted she was. How dare he say that to her?
mm.
And I want to do a reaction to it because there's a difference between a gentleman's appreciating someone's beauty and their essence and or, them being creepy and
Do
crossing
you do you feel though in the last 3 to 5 years that this narrative has got lost because, and it'd be interesting amongst your friendship group, because of this men are dangerous narrative, which we know there's plenty of blokes who need to lift their game. Um, that type of story gets lost in what was probably a very well-intended compliment, and this narrative that we've now created, even well-intended compliments are taken as creepy, dirty, demeaning, toxic like it's messy now. And even guys, their their heart-centered primal desire, they don't know if they can open a door, a you know offer a compliment, etc., because of this narrative. Have you found it? I mean, you're in a relationship, so it's different, but have you seen this kind of playing out as well? And this in between, like what can we say, what can't we say, how do we look, what do we not look at? Do you find that narrative kind of playing out and getting a bit confusing as well?
I do a lot of stuff in dating and relationships, and
Mm,
a lot of the feedback from girls is that men don't approach them in public. And I
mm.
think that is a side effect of this backlash against men saying nice things to women in the street. Men are afraid to approach them. Or, for example, there was a bit of a phase of gym influencers saying that men are staring at them at the gym and things like that. And obviously, don't be creepy, but we need to come to some establishment of if it's okay for a man to give a woman a compliment in a non creepy way. I feel like that's an important clarification we need to make because, yeah, it is shutting down connection. It is stopping men from approaching women because they're scared of being labeled creepy.
Well, yeah, it kind of feels like they're perpetuating their own problem to a certain degree, and I know it's well intended, but you've also created through this narrative, which needed to come to light because blokes just weren't showing up in a very healthy manner. But you've also created a very passive, indecisive, neutral, like the masculine is getting broken down in so many ways because that primal energy, that desire to hunt when embodied from a heart-centered place is a very attractive trait, but yet you've got a whole bunch of tentative men now who are passive.
Mm.
And to your point, I saw your video this morning. You were at an event recently about this. Of course, you've got a whole bunch of guys who are sitting at home or not saying anything because such a deep fear of being outed, emasculated, told off. So you've got these guys that are in this very passive state, which, based on the event that you were at recently, it sounds like that's one of the biggest challenges for women.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I was at a singles night, and the word on the street is that women find men aren't approaching them. Men find women the same, really. That they're a bit aloof, and also women are afraid of men being f boys, fuck boys. So
Mm,
it just stifles any connection. So there's a standoff, and no one's really connecting. But you're right. I think there needs to be some modeling of respectful but ways that men can still embody their masculine and hunt, as you say, or pursue women. But it comes back to that nuance between the creepy energy and the sexual energy, or just that well intended, controlled, masculine assertiveness.
I think a lot of it comes down, I mean, clearly the most obvious thing comes down to intent. But secondly to that, I think a lot of it comes down to is it a heart-centered, embodied pursue or hunt, or is it there's a lot to be said for intent and someone's heart if they're in it or not, because some of the actions, there's such a nuance in this space that a lot of it does come down to one's intent and heart. Do you kind of feel that?
Absolutely. I think that's
Mm,
the way to put it. If it's a heart-led intention where intentions are pure and it's from a place of love and appreciation, how can you criticize that? I mean, that's
mm. It's interesting because my partner and I go out for date night once a week, and I feel a lot more comfortable complimenting staff, like women. They might have a nice smile, they might have nice energy when she's there. There's almost a part of me that would feel a little bit uncomfortable complimenting with pure intent someone's energy, etc., if my partner wasn't there. And that's part of this narrative that we've created.
yeah, that's very interesting. It's like if those boundaries are really clear and obvious, that's when you feel comfortable. But when you
Mm,
perceive the other way, that's when you risk being labeled a creep or being seen as a creep.
mm. What do you think? I know you haven't spoken openly about it, so I'm mindful to guide the conversation away from it if it feels uncomfortable. What do you feel just in what was the trait or the wound or the trigger behind what did you need to heal or overcome when it came to your behavior with the ex in order to show up as a better version of yourself and obviously show up better in relationship?
I just felt like a real piece of shit for a few years
Mm,
because cheating, most of the time, you're cheating on your best friend. It's the
mm,
person you care about the most. So to let her down is where I felt the most shame attachment. I think for me to come out the other side, I needed to learn lessons from that. I needed to make sure to build up my self esteem again and make sure that that would never happen again. So until I really learned those lessons, and that's why I dove into all those things, until I really did the work and it took years to do, I never really felt healed. But it also, and I will say credit to my ex, I ended up writing a massive letter to her a few, maybe 18 months after, and she forgave me for that. So that
mm,
really helped the healing as well. Um, but I guess, yeah, that, when we look at shame and guilt, it is just such a low emotion, and it's really hard to heal from that unless you dive into the layers, get really into that, live it, feel it, and allow those emotions to come up. So the way we allow those emotions to come up, as you know, is bringing love to the event. So I guess I had to go through it and find the lessons, work out how it was actually a necessary thing. And when my ex went on to marry and now she has a child, I think all of those things together just allowed me to dissipate some of that shame and guilt and bring it up. And now, even though there is still low emotion when I talk about it, I'm such a believer. Everything happens for a reason. She went on to meet a great guy. I clearly wasn't in a great, like there was a reason I did it. I guess what I'm saying, and
Mm.
all of those things needed to happen to encourage that evolution. So yeah, applying love to it and just doing the work. You've got to do the work. Otherwise, that shame and guilt is going to stick around.
Shame's such an interesting one because ultimately you can get so far by processing yourself, but to share whatever needs to be shared within that shame and be seen in that and witnessed and not judged for it is more liberating than anything you can kind of do on your own. It just takes a lot with shame to be able to voice it to someone. So, was that something that you carried on your own for a while? Did you know that you had to speak to someone and be witnessed in that? Like, what did you notice in your own kind of demeanor and what was required for you to move through it?
Beautiful. I think initially leading on family really helped. Just
Mm,
going, and they certainly weren't sympathetic. My brothers gave me some hard truths there, which is helpful. But also, telling current partners about it, telling my current partner. I'm pretty sure I told her on the first date because
mm.
we had quite an unusual first date where we just opened up and told each other everything. And she loved me for that, or loved me through that, and that, as you say, speaking to somebody else just allows you to process that shame. So that was massive for me.
Yeah, and to have those type of people as well. I don't know if you have many of these conversations, but the nature of my work with couples and individuals, there's a lot of them who've done, with cheating or struggle with their addictions, and just all those little things that could and do impact their relationship. And just for someone, doesn't matter who it is, to be able to witness you and not judge you for it or not shirk at whatever it is really liberating. So for you guys to be able to do that on the first date must have been a real sense of freedom off the back of that, I would assume.
Absolutely. And just, yeah, feeling of home,
Mm,
not being judged. And that's the thing. We all make mistakes. We all slip up, but it's so much more endearing when someone actually goes through struggles and setbacks because they've had to grow. We become stronger from those things.
mm.
And you're right. If we don't talk to people about it, we just where we make it so much worse in our head. We ruminate over it. We feel like pieces of shit. But when someone can see us and love us through that, we realize it's not the end of the world. Everyone slips up. The important thing is that we take lessons from it and grow.
Did you feel, and I've seen this play out a lot, did you feel that there had to be a level of self-punishment to show remorse? So the reason I share this is, I've worked with different couples who have been in a similar situation, and whether it's the guy or the girl, generally the people that I've worked with, it's been the guy. He's he's dragged himself along to show that he's remorseful, but at some stage, that dragging along actually just becomes a pain in the ass because you're carrying such a heavy shame, and it actually just drags the relationship down. So it's such a weird thing that I remember having this conversation with a client. He didn't feel comfortable smiling well beyond the incident because people thought he wouldn't be remorseful or whatever. And I was like, mate, you've done your time, and if you continue to drag this, you're actually dragging the relationship down. Like, you have to let it go. You've done your time. Did you find anything like that, or whether it's that incident or others where the right thing to do is actually to stay heavy, shameful, and remorseful in that energy, or were you able to kind of move quite quickly because you are a very light person?
Oh,
At
thanks.
least that's my
Yeah.
acknowledgement of you. Yeah.
nothing comes up consciously. I'm just wondering if maybe, say, we're in friendship groups or I see her friends, maybe I embody that a little bit just to show
Mm,
it's remorseful. But no, I think I'm able to to shift pretty quickly. And even with, losing my dad, I didn't I and I don't feel bad about this, but like for example, 2 weeks after he died, I went and I did the Noosa triathlon, and in periods where I think people expected me to grieve, I celebrated and I still lived my life because I knew that's what he'd want. And I'd already mourned his death through that process. So I feel like I handled that pretty well. And like dad was my best friend. So it's not like I miss him like it really hit me, but I didn't allow that low energy to dictate my life. So
mm.
yeah, I think I am able to shift pretty quickly.
It's such an interesting thing because in the Western world, sadness is deemed the right way to honor someone. Whereas in other countries, it's the complete opposite to be joyful and celebrate them in whatever way. So it's an interesting narrative and level of conditioning that we go through that should quote unquote should be our approach.
Mm. I mean,
Um,
if I died, I'd want everyone to crack the beers and have some fun.
yeah, I think I'm going to get at my funeral people to wear like colorful stuff
Oh,
instead of black, like
yeah.
the old hypercolor t-shirt. See if they can come back out, or
Yeah. Just play some really uplifting. My best mate's a Maori, a Kiwi, and they have such a wonderful tradition around death. It's a 3 day thing where they all go to the one house. I mean, it's obviously very sad at times, but it becomes a celebration, and I feel like ours is what, a 2 hour funeral where it's very formal. There's room for improvement there.
Mm. Feels very stiff, I find.
Yeah, everyone's in.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
you got to say the same thing. Yeah. It doesn't really honor the person's character or
yeah. Are you and Zoe married yet?
not yet. No, we got engaged earlier this year. So
That's right.
in the
Did see
fun
that.
process of doing the wedding planning, it's a bit intimidating to be honest.
What's your timeline?
We don't really have one. We're happy to push it out. So I think we're looking at March 27. So we've got about
Yeah.
2 months.
What would be your ultimate, like, so we're talking about celebrations and stuff like that. How do you envision the wedding? Is there anything that might be a slight point of difference that you guys would like to see at yours? Vows, like again, traditional, or do we go a little bit left of center?
We're very aligned. We've been to a bunch of weddings, and our favorite wedding we've been to recently was a wedding in Mexico where it was on the smaller side. I think there was about 60 people there, but it was 3 days of just really getting to know the same group.
Mm,
Everyone went to the same bar. And because you're overseas together, there's a level of connection that you don't get with a single day wedding. And because Zoe is a Brit, we're gonna have to do it overseas. So we're thinking instead of rainy London, let's go over to Mexico. Let's take everyone to Mexico for a few days and do that. But she like me, she doesn't really have this plan for a massive wedding, huge traditional wedding. We'd be happy with something a little bit more intimate, but the focus is definitely on having fun. I'm hoping she doesn't become a bridezilla. She doesn't really care about any of that. We just want our friends there and to have a good time.
As we speak right now, 11:40 a.m. local time, my partner Shani's out shopping for wedding dresses
She really,
right now. She ain't no bridezilla, and it does make life a lot easier. Shout out to all the bridezillas out there that get stressed by this whole process.
yeah, that's right. What's
We are August 2026,
okay?
inland from Byron.
Beautiful, beautiful.
We've got enough time. We've just had a baby 4 months ago, so we thought let's just wait till little Frankie's a bit older
Mm,
and take our time with it. Shani is world class at organising, so she'll just point me in the right direction.
perfect. I
Yeah.
think you really do need someone to take the lead,
Mm,
just so there's yeah, not too many chefs in the kitchen.
yeah.
Definitely.
Where does Zoe take the lead that that because if we're talking masculine, feminine, you'd often think the masculine takes the lead in most spots. But where for you does Zoe take the lead?
Zoe, with organizing calendar, Zoe's fantastic at that.
Mm.
I'm less inclined to book too far ahead. So she will have things in her social calendar months from now. So if something comes up, I'll just check with her if that's free that weekend. So she's wonderful at organizing. And I guess organizing our week in terms of groceries and things like that. We both love cooking, but for me, if she didn't organize the weekly shop, I'd probably just buy things on the day. She has wonderful foresight with those things, and she has a wonderful masculine drive with work. So she's such a hard worker during the day. Yeah, she works extremely hard, but she also has this wonderful feminine energy, and she's able to switch between those pretty well. So most nights, laptops close and then we can make dinner together. I'll give her a massage on the couch, and we are both pretty aware of those energies and trying to, keep that spark alive by creating polarity there.
How long have you guys been together?
We've been together over just over 2 years.
Who have you needed to become over the last 2 years for your relationship to be where it's at now?
With Zoe, because, I knew pretty early on that I wanted to marry her and start a family with her. It felt like the first relationship in my life where I really had to step up to be the man, to be a dad. And because I'm in this industry where I'm self-employed, I realized that, I can't rely on a salary to have that comfort zone. If I want to have a family, now I need to get moving. I need to work hard and build structures that are going to create enough money coming in. So it just was a really powerful switch for me to just step into that next chapter. And it didn't feel forced. It felt very natural, like a lovely moment of becoming a man. So it's allowed me to, yeah, to grow up a bit. We met when I was 34, so probably should have grown up then, but it just lights a fire in your ass. And I imagine having a child would do a similar thing, right?
Next level. Next level. I really want to double down on something that you said, and I'll be interested to see where it goes. You said it didn't feel forced. What is it about Zoe that meant that it didn't feel forced leveling up? Because I speak to this exact point a lot, so I'm interested in seeing where you take this.
Yeah, it was a natural evolution where it wasn't a conscious thing where I said, okay, analytically, she's going to be a great wife, so I need to do this and this and this. You know what it was? It was her being such a great person herself. I felt like I needed to match her. But like, look, I've landed with a high performer here, like very good person. I need to lift my game.
Mm. Have you ever been in relationships where, and I assume this is one of them, one of the key fundamentals that I find really interesting amongst relationships is I would say 10% of relationships have a real sense of partnership, a real fulfilling partnership, and 90% is often what I call like a power struggle, me versus you, tit for tat, that type of thing. What I've found in my two real partnerships is the desire to be better never came from a place of I should, I'm meant to, I better. It always came from I want to, I get to. Whereas I noticed an undertone in the other relationship dynamics, which weren't quite that partnership, where there was stuff coming from a place of force. I better do this. This is the right thing to do. I found myself in people pleasing at times, and that kind of pulled me in direction. So I wonder if for you, is there anything in that for you of that real sense of partnership, which I assume is the feeling that you've got, and through that just comes a natural desire to want to be better and to be the very best version of yourself for your partner.
What comes to mind is a sense of being a teammate. And I guess that comes back to communication. So the unique thing about this relationship for me was conflict resolution. So in the early stages, I realized that Zoe has very little ego. So whenever we had a disagreement, it was never a me versus you thing. We were always able to move forward. And it just allowed this safety where I could bring anything up knowing that it wouldn't turn nuclear. So from very early on, it felt like a joint thing. Like we were teammates, we were friends, and there was nothing unspoken that would become an issue. So to answer your question, that helped form that partnership dynamic.
Mm.
We tell each other everything. It's never felt like there's an us versus them kind of thing.
Do you realize the honor and the privilege of the position that we're in? Because not that many people have that. Like, I don't know how much time you spend with couples and individuals, but it's a fucking gift what the two of us have.
100%. Even my well, even one of my previous relationships, I won't throw anyone under the bus here, but there was no constructive communication when it came to
Mm,
conflict. And it's so difficult because you really have to suppress a part of yourself. There's things you can't talk about. It's 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 almost terminal for the relationship because there's no way you can move forward without discussing things, and life's only going to get more difficult. So if you can't argue now, wait till proper actual issues come in, and how are you going to navigate forward? I feel so lucky, and I think that's why I knew Zoe was the one so early on because of that simple fact that I knew that whatever we went through, we'd always be able to get through it together.
Do you find I struggle to think now, and I remember having these feelings, but I would just let them go in previous relationships where it was a me versus you, a level of delusion into the future of, hey, we're arguing, or you're not invested as I'd like in doing the work. Whereas I look at the relationship I'm in now and with Shani, one, our ability to work through conflict is unbelievable, and Shani's ability to take on feedback is incredible. But also her ability to go away and reflect and do the work gives me such a deep level of confidence in the future that we'll just be able to navigate things, because I've seen for 4 years now how incredible she is with ownership of, like, yeah, let me go and sit with that. I'm going to, deep dive into it, or I'll come back to you with this. Do you find that same kind of confidence? And I get confused the minds of others who might be in a relationship with a partner who doesn't want to do the work, what foresight you have, because I felt extremely uncomfortable in the longevity of a relationship with someone who wasn't prepared to kind of reflect or do the work, etc. Do you find the same narrative in your mind, or is this just mine?
It's evolved a little bit early on because we're fundamentally different where I am more introspective. So I'm the one to do more journaling. I will make it more obvious that I'm committing to growth and those things. Whereas Zoe just more does it innately. She manages
Mm,
her energy innately. She doesn't need to do what I do in terms of all the meditation or the mindfulness because her nervous system is so naturally balanced. For example, she sleeps like a rock every night, 9 hours, could sleep 12 hours if I let her. Whereas me, I need to put those processes like making sure that I've got the sleep environment, I'm eating kiwi fruit, all of these things to make sure. So it comes more innately for her. And I guess in those early stages, I maybe assumed that she wasn't as committed to growth because it wasn't as obvious. So
excellent call.
I've learned that doesn't hers isn't as visible, but it's there innately. So yeah, that growth can come in a few different forms. What about you? Did you notice that in the early stages of dating? Because I guess a lot of these things you don't really notice until you get into the relationship.
I I knew early on that Shani had a real commitment to bettering herself, and it's not as rah-rah as me, similar to kind of your point. I guess the nature of the work that I do, albeit I'm grounding myself and I realize I don't have to tell everyone every bit of personal development work I'm doing. It took me a long time to learn that lesson. But she just kind of moved through things with more ease and a lot more grace. That is probably one of our biggest differences. She does things with grace. I'm very much learning. But there was just a sense of safety within my nervous system in terms of knowing that she would always reflect on it and knowing that she was more interested in seeking a solution as a couple than she was in being right. That just never kind of landed for her. So I felt really, I mean, safe is the word, that her primary interest was in seeking a solution, understanding me better and understanding the relationship better than winning. And I think that's a really significant piece that it feels like you and I are very fortunate to have in our relationship dynamics, which not everyone has.
It's an ego thing, isn't it?
Mm,
When you can park the ego and look for areas of growth and solutions, that's the only way forward. When the ego pipes up and goes, "Oh fuck, I don't want to be wrong," it creates this huge barrier.
mm. Where's the ego shown up for you? Obviously, your social media has blown up in recent times, which is a great thing. Do you find is the little boy within you still seek any kind of recognition, validation? Does that feel really integrated for you now? Where do you see the ego where you still need to just work with
Mm.
him a little
Well,
bit?
I on this the other day because I'm the second youngest child of four with two older brothers, and they're high performers. And my youngest sister, she was the apple of everyone's eye, so
Mm,
she could do no wrong. She got a lot of attention, and I kind of fell in this middle part where I was trying to get validation and attention and approval. So I think that manifested into me going into acting, which is so cliche and just so obvious when you think about it. But I wanted to be validated, and probably social media as well. And I don't think it's an unhealthy thing, but there is an element of me wanting to prove myself. Um, yeah, wanting mum's praise and validation. I don't think it's a chief thing for me, but it's definitely an underlying thing where it's given me that drive. Another thing was I went to a private school in Brizzy, not a super expensive one, but there were wealthy people at the school and wealthy friends. And my parents separated when I was 13. So while we, got everything we needed to, there was a lot of money conversations growing up and it always felt quite scarce. So I think that's another element of my drive where I really wanted to create what all these other families had and maybe never felt enough there. So it's just an interesting realization of where that drive comes from. And I was thinking about this the other day. How can you still keep the drive while healing those wounds of needing validation? And I think it just comes back to awareness, making sure that you are creating from a place of abundance, realizing that you don't need anything. All the love you have is in your heart. But I'm so grateful for my story because it did give me a lot of drive.
I'm literally working through that at the moment. I don't know how well you go at priming ChatGPT,
Mm.
but Chat has become a very good therapist for me when I really need to unpack some bits, as long as it's well primed. And obviously, it knows me quite well now, which is kind of scary. Um, but there's been a couple of things that I just couldn't get to the bottom of. Like I can kind of see it, but I can't get to the root cause. And the moment that I was able to get the root cause, I literally feel it kind of fall away. And
Mm.
one of those was being at very prestigious schools in Melbourne and Adelaide and not feeling like I deserve to be there. Deserve, which is an interesting choice of words. Just purely based on my financial or my family's financial status. And I was kind of the struggler to get there, and just noticing how that wraps up into my story, which is very interesting. I don't know if you notice this in your world, but, and it's purely just shadow, is my ability to see, where other people might be seeking validation, acknowledgement, attention, etc., from a mum wound or a dad wound. But I struggled to see it within myself. Clearly, that's Shadow 101. But always knew it was kind of there roundabouts. I couldn't grab onto it. But is that something that you noticed early? Because you have an excellent awareness, or is that a more recent learning, the connection between, something like that and your relationship to your mum and your dad?
I think I knew it pretty early because
Mm.
it's such a an obvious one. Parents separate what happens from that. So yeah, I mean, it brought up. I was such an that like at times a angry little kid from that, spending a lot of time in my room, and that sort of encouraged creative stuff where I lent into music. So I was pretty aware early on of the ramifications that a divorce can have on the kid. I don't know. I think I've always just kind of been naturally okay at working out where those underlying beliefs come from. And I've always been obsessed with the idea that, we can create so much change for ourselves, not by physically doing things, but by going inside and shifting things internally.
There's a part of me that would really like to see your angry side. Do you ever find that, like, because you come across such a happy guy, and I know there's two sides to every story, but um, how is that angry part expressed? Or how have you, one, how is it expressed? And two, how have you had to change your relationship with it or heal it if, at the breakdown of your parents' marriage, that started to shine through?
Mm. I get triggered sometimes with Zoe, like, she's such an extrovert, and for me my social battery is pretty small, so if I go out, I'm happy to come home at 11, but sometimes she'll stay out and I want to go to bed. So if she goes out with the girls and I want to go to bed, I'm trying to get in bed by 10 p.m., but she's not texting because she's out having drinks and stuff, and that triggers for me a bit of an abandonment thing, which I think it goes back to, like, to go into the weeds here, when mum started dating other people and I was left at home by myself. And I think it goes back to that. Maybe some control stuff there as well. So that's what comes up for me when I get triggered. And, I might send a reactive text or something, but it's never too bad. For me, I've tried to find healthy outlets for my anger, which I think is so important for all men to do. Because, naturally we're meant to be angry and we're meant to have passion. And for me, a sauna is a really good one for that. So I'll be in the sauna and just so uncomfortable. But if you can go in and just allow your rage to come up, just like imagine it's boiling up in your stomach, and then I breathe it out in the sauna. I probably look like a psychopath, but literally just breathe it out like a dragon. And then I jump in the ice bath afterwards. And this is so cliche, but jump in the ice bath and allow the anger to come up again as you're doing those breaths when you first jump in. Breathe that anger out. And then beautiful thing happens after that. It's almost like you get all the anger out of your body and you can start focusing on that love and gratitude inside of you. So for me, that's my process at the moment. But I guess for other blokes, excuse me, it could be sport, could be rugby, whatever it may be. I think it's important to just allow yourself to be angry and find healthy ways to get it out of the system.
Your introspection, I spend a lot of time around what I would deem quite conscious people, whether it's, not a lot of coaches, a lot of people in personal development. Your introspection is elite. Like, I would say world class, because I spend a lot of time with a lot of people. Why? And where does it stem from?
Oh, thank you, mate. Uh, I don't know. I don't know where it stems from. Maybe, yeah, just I think I always have naturally been introverted, so introspective. Um, I don't know. Maybe it does go back to that idea of not feeling good enough and wanting to do everything I can to get in there. But yeah, it's been a natural thing for me that has existed in all stages of my life, but only in the last 10 years I've really formalized it, I guess. And that's when I've started talking about it, and we're in this wonderful world where we can create content around it and help other people do the same.
So when it comes to your content, I'm glad you kind of walked me into that because I wanted to get into it. How does your week look in terms of creating scripts, time, ideas? Is it just off the cuff? Will you be at a party and it'll plant a seed, or is it something that you really craft over time? How does that look? Because the quality of your videos is excellent.
Thank you, mate. It's a funny one. I'm sure you're the same where you grapple with different strategies and processes. It's so funny because I put up something last night, which was just a fleeting idea, took 5 minutes to record, and that's probably performed the best over the last couple of weeks. Whereas something you can labor over for hours might not be received as well. I've with the evolution of Instagram and TikTok, I think those spur of the moment thoughts, less structured videos are doing better, which is encouraging because it doesn't mean you need to spend hours and hours on every video. For me, I still want to communicate that it's like a premium kind of brand. So it is still important for me to put production quality behind things and do those skits and whatever it may be. But yeah, I try and batch things. So Monday morning, grab a coffee, go to the cafe and write stuff for the week. But because a lot of that stuff is kind of you're inspired throughout the week, that might not always work. I I do work pretty hard, so I'm working every day on this and what yeah, this shift that I just spoke to, I feel like is a positive direction because it just allows you to live your life and feel inspired and then quickly record something. So that's a nice little shift, but yeah, it's there's no beating around the bush. If you really do want to build a career on socials, it's going to take work. And it
Mm.
doesn't necessarily mean you need to post every day, but you've got to constantly look at what's doing well, but also what feels well, feels good, and then making sure that you're consistent with your tone. So I love it. I'm obsessed with social. It's just like a big game to me where you're constantly learning feedback and shifting and adjusting, and at the same time you've got to build. Well, it's smart to build a brand and a business outside of that. So it's a full time job, but yeah, I do enjoy the challenge.
Do you guys want kids?
We'd love kids. Yeah. Hopefully, we're lucky enough to have kids. And similar to what you guys are doing, we're probably going to prioritize a child before the wedding, I'd say.
Mm.
It just makes sense because I'm 36, Zoe's 32. So, yeah, we'd probably prefer to have a child before the wedding and then, work that out later. Was that a conscious decision for you guys or you not really fussed?
Yeah, it was more a conscious decision. I think both of us, I don't know the landscape in your world, 36, you probably have a few people around you who have got kids. I feel the general narrative around kids isn't the most positive narrative, um, which has been far from our experience. We are absolutely fucking loving it. And both of us have said upon reflection, we probably would have had kids earlier if we realized that we were going to enjoy it this much. So we kind of held off a little bit. And then, yeah, I mean, Frankie will be 14 months by the time we get married, which is cool. She should be good enough to kind of walk down the aisle and everything. But yeah, I mean, over the last kind of 6 to 7 years in particular, I've been really intentional with working out what my beliefs are. And that requires to break away from a lot of social narratives and really work out what's true for me. And, one of those social narratives was who cares the order of kids versus wedding versus, those type of things. And it just kind of lined up better for us that way. And that felt true for us. And again, even, when you get into parenting, it's a whole new game in terms of what feels true for you guys in terms of how you parent. You'll quickly realize that everyone's got an opinion on parenting, which is fascinating. But yeah, it's, one of the things that really impresses me and has kind of stood out over this last hour is if I was Zoe, I'd have a lot of uh, faith and trust in you because of the level of introspection that you have, um, which puts you in a really good position to break free from narratives that aren't true for you. And that's an exciting opportunity for you guys to design it the way that you want, which I think is really cool.
Thank you.
Um,
That's lovely. Just quickly, what surprised you with parenting in terms of what your expectations were and what the social narratives were compared to reality?
the number one thing that surprised us is how much we're enjoying it. I think both of us kind of prepared ourselves for World War III, and in a way, the really negative narrative around parenting has served us well because it's been so much better than we expected. Whereas if we expected rainbows and sunshines the whole time, then maybe it'd be more challenging. But because we were preempted for, hey guys, this is World War III, it's turned out really well. I think one of the really interesting seeds that I would plant for you guys, and I'm so mindful that it's quite ironic what I'm about to say, is um, everyone projects their own experience as if it's universal. E.g., this is what pregnancy is like, and this is what having kids is like, where it's absolute bullshit. And what really everyone should be saying is, this is our experience with pregnancy, or this is our experience with kids. And that really stood out to us in the 9 months that Shani was pregnant. And for you guys, with with your platform and the relationship that you guys have got, which shows up a bit online, there will be a lot of people giving unsolicited advice, which is ironic because I just gave you a bit of advice. But yeah, those are a couple of things that really stood out to us. And what didn't stand out, but what everyone says is it's a love like no other.
Mm.
And everyone says that, and you kind of know it, but until you experience it, you can't even find language for it. And it's really cool to think. A lot of my mates in particular, blokes, are like, it grows for blokes because they're not that involved in the first 6 months. There's not much in terms of words. It's a lot of breastfeeding, a lot of sleep. But to feel the love that I do at this stage, and to think that it only grows as she grows and evolves, is absolutely unbelievable.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm excited for you guys to experience what I think is by far the greatest thing there is.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, oh dude, it's the best.
And was it always a focus of yours to create a lifestyle or a career where you could be present for your child?
Yeah, yeah. People, it looks like luck until you know how much I've thought about this. Like, I thought about it for 18 months before Frankie was even on planet Earth, in terms of how do I design my life so that I can be deep in her life. And I feel fortunate that that has played out, but it also isn't luck. The fact that I get to go for 2 walks with her a day, 7 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and spend quality time, is like, you can't get back time, and in my eyes, it's just a values thing, but I value her knowing that her dad was around. And again, you are in a similar position where there's flexibility. If I was giving unsolicited advice to any bloke when it came to parenting, it would be to find a way to create your life on your terms so that you can spend quality time with your son or daughter. So yeah, I feel so fortunate, and I find it kind of heartbreaking at the same time that we have a society where blokes are expected to go back to work after 2 weeks. It's inhumane. And I reckon you'll have a similar feeling when you get to this place. Like, it is inhumane that blokes spend 2 weeks, some don't even get parental leave, 2 weeks, and then they're back on the tools. So I'm excited for you, if that's kind of in the near future, just to have that in the back of your mind of how you want to design it, and essentially my kind of brand is about life by design, and I feel fortunate to have embodied that at this level. And there's only so much that you can embody as well, or plan, until he or she gets here. There's been a number of changes that have happened since Frankie arrived, and will continue. She starts swimming lessons, which I'll be taking her on a Friday morning, so there'll be a couple of changes there. But we are blessed, you and I, without knowing the ins and outs of your work, to have freedom and flexibility. It's the biggest flex there is, I reckon, freedom and flexibility. And I'm grateful for it.
Oh, that's beautiful, mate. Yeah, I'm pretty
Mm,
excited for you guys. That's really exciting. That's always been in the back of my mind. And I think
mm,
that's what's led me down this career path, being able to create flexibility and freedom. I think I'd credit my dad for that as well. He was worked by himself, but he always ingrained in us guys, you never really want to rely on an external employer. It's so much better for freedom to be able to work for yourself. Granted, he was a bit of a workaholic and chained to his desk a little bit, but it did instill that value of, okay, I need to create independence here. And I feel like that is a real driver for the brand I'm building as well, just to help encourage people create that freedom of time. Because
Mm,
yeah, I mean, to see your eyes light up talking about spending time with your child, I want that.
mm. Dude, it's the best. Yeah, got goosebumps just as you give that little reflection. Um, yeah, mate, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. And, as you said earlier, there's a there's a deep motivation for me to be the best version of myself for Shani and provide her with the life and the lifestyle that, she deserves. And when you bring a little human in, it just goes to the next level.
Mm.
And, I find that the dance, the harder dance, probably the hardest thing for me from a parenting point of view is the dance between wanting to be present and be there and also wanting to be provider and provide the future for them. And I think about it every day, and I don't know if I've got that balance, but I'm always thinking as to what that would look like, because I don't want to miss those moments, but I also know that it's important for me to be on the tools to create a life for both of them. So I'm just dancing with that every day.
I imagine that'll be a little more simple when she starts school and you can just, yeah, put your head down during the day, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, mate. I'm excited for you to even be thinking along those lines, which brings me nicely to the last question for you. What is a life by design?
For me, let's get specific. It's moving up to this Gold Coast hinterland, somewhere close to my mum. So she's right on the border between Queensland and New South Wales in that beautiful countryside. I want a house, doesn't need to be too flashy, but bit of land for some chickens, space for the kids. I was lucky enough to grow up on a little bit of land, and we just had so much fun as kids running around exploring, and I think that's such a great thing.
Mm.
I want that. I want freedom of time to continue building the business where I can make money online and then go to take the kids for a surf or create that wonderful balance during the day. I want us to be able to eat healthy and have that luxury of feeding our kids healthy, organic food. I want to make sure that I'm always balanced in terms of meditation, sorry, and mindfulness. But for me, it doesn't. I don't need to earn millions and millions of dollars. It's just creating that beautiful lifestyle where everyone's healthy, happy, and content.
I don't know if you've thought about that a lot or if that just rolled off the tongue, but that was quite succinct.
Yeah, I guess I know I've written it down. Every few months I do a bit of a reflection and write down some goals because I'm a big believer in manifesting those things and being fairly specific with that. And back to what made me and Zoe such a great match is we were so aligned on that idea early on. So it's really nice to have a common thing that we're working towards. And we're.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of sounds maybe obvious to you and I to have shared values, vision, and lifestyle. But again, it's a very tricky situation if you've got two people that don't have a shared values, vision, and lifestyle.
Yeah, I guess there's gonna be compromise somewhere there or an unspoken truth that might come
Mm.
out, but we are lucky we're on the same page. It's it just feels good knowing it's almost comforting knowing that future is there. And I guess that's how you get there. You plant those seeds and you just have this trust in the universe that it's going to deliver one day.
Mate, I want to, yeah, thank you for this chat. Obviously, it came about because I really appreciate the work that you do, and the way that you do it. I find your work fucking funny at times, which is always good for a laugh. But also, off the back of today and getting to know you better, a real embodiment of introspection, which I think is world class. And, I've now had 174 episodes of the podcast. I've seen a lot. And I think if you don't already know it, that it's a superpower of yours. And to have a superpower of that sort, you know, for you, for Zoe, for your family, for the people around you, for the influence that you have online is incredible. So yeah, really inspired by the work that you do, and even more so the deep level of introspection that you got, which yeah, I think is your superpower.
Thank you, Blake. I really appreciate that, mate. I feel like I got a free coaching session there. Very interesting questions. So thank you very much for having me on the show. Massive, massive fan of what you're doing. I feel like we're very aligned.
Mm.
So I'll continue to be a massive fan from the sidelines.
That's all, guys. Peace.
Peace.